Before the first cut, I like to draw up all the parts in SketchUp, and then I can arrange them on the board and make the most efficient cuts. So parts of the same size I like to put next to each other, and that way I can make cross cuts across the whole board, which will make gripping it easier as the length will be shorter. For this project I'm using Southern Yellow Pine 1x12s and one 3x12. The parts that I need are 100mm wide, which means I can get 3 of them widthways out of one plank. So I'm marking out 100mm widths and drawing that the whole way along the board, and then marking my lengths onto that with a bit of play either end of each board so I can trim it to exact length later. The marking up is only rough, as I can dial in the final dimensions on the table saw and get the exact same width for every single plank, but it gives a good visualisation of where each plank's going to go, making sure that you've got enough timber to get all your planks out of it as well. And to help with that, I also colour code all the parts in SketchUp so that when I've printed it off I can see exactly which bit's going to go where and what colour it is, so I know where it's going to go in the table, so I can pick grain and things like that. Once both boards are fully marked up, I then make the cross cuts with a jigsaw, breaking it down into shorter planks, which will fit much easier through the table saw as well as being easier to handle. The same goes for jointing the boards, seeing as my jointer only has a short table. With the longer pieces I couldn't arrange them on the board so that I could get a single crosscut going all the way across, so I had to plane them as one longer board. Whereas with the shorter boards, for the legs I could line them all up next to each other and make one single crosscut. For jointing the longer boards I set up a temporary in-feed and out-feed support just by clamping various bits of scrap together until I got the exact right height. It was at this point that I realised that for the whole of the jointing process I'd had the dust extractor plugged into the table saw, not the jointer, so I then went ahead and switched it over. Since the board is exactly 300mm wide and you've got to account for the kerf of the saw blade, I cut each board at 95mm wide, since that was the maximum I could get out once you'd planed one edge and accounted for the blade going through the work. Once you've made all your cuts, you need to leave the timber to sit for a few days, as the large boards have lots of tension and stress in them, and when you make the cuts you release that tension, so as you're passing through the saw they might bind up together, they might banana apart, you might find that they start to twist and cup, and things like that. So putting them in a pile weighs them down and keeps them as straight as possible, and you want to leave it for, I'd say, 3 days, something like that, and then go back and start jointing one face and then planing them to final thickness. Once I'd ripped the longer boards to width, I could then go ahead and make the crosscuts on those using the jigsaw. All in all, out of the 2 boards there was very little waste, just the 3 little pieces sitting in front of the stack, and I might use some of those to replace the long members of the bench, as those came out very twisted from the board, so I'll see how those plane up and if necessary I can replace them. In the next video I'm going to start planing the wood to final thickness and squaring up the ends and starting on some of the joints for the legs, so don't miss that video.